See, if I really wanted to start some nonsense, I'll have a whole bunch of specific people's faces put in the thumbnails. I'm not planning to do that, but I'm not going to rule it out either. So something that has been popping up in my feed on YouTube, not my subscription feed, just the, oh, here's what we recommend to you feed on YouTube, which about 3/4 of it is recommending to me videos I've already seen. It has been pushing for a couple of months now, a video at me with a number of video essayists being interviewed, answering assumptions about what it is they do. And right in the thumbnail, the very first assumption that they address is that video essayists are just glorified drama YouTubers. And funnily enough, that's something I'd kind of already been thinking about, because there's a creator I follow who seems to be dangerously close to tipping from one into the other. But maybe we should get some definitions out of the way first and do some clarifications. When we talk about drama YouTube, well, it's what it sounds like. It is dealing with, reporting on, or sometimes initiating drama about a person. That's kind of the core defining thing with drama YouTube. It is generally going to single out a person, even if that person is being singled out as a specific instance of something that the creator might generally go after anyway. I suppose that's another thing. Drama videos inherently have very negative takes, because you're feeding off the drama. That's the nature of the beast on that. What I do want to clarify right off the bat is there are whole swaths of drama YouTube that are just trash. And I don't necessarily mean like the people who make them are bad. I don't know any of these people. I don't really watch this kind of YouTube. But there are whole swaths of it that are just people sitting down, reading about some breaking news or something that's out on Twitter or Tumblr, talking about how awful somebody is and going, oh, that sucks, and giving their hot take with no nuance, no real extrapolation, no deeper thoughts. I'm not even going to talk about that, because that doesn't really warrant a strong comparison to video essayists, but there are some better produced drama YouTube material that comes closer to what video essayists do. Now, the thing to remember about video essays is it is first and foremost a format. It is a style. It is taking the philosophies and the approaches of academic essays and applying them in video format. Now, video essays have a certain degree of prestige thanks to some of the more successful and impactful people in that space. In many ways, the format was kind of codified by folks like Lindsay Ellis, Folding Ideas, and Hbomberguy. And it is this sort of overall format of coming in with a point to make that isn't just person bad. And that's sort of where the line gets blurry, because oftentimes in video essays, even video essays that are not specifically wholly about a person, still end up touching on issues of person bad.
So, Katzenberg, petty asshole.
I just can't get away from how this guy f***ing sucks.
They're twins. I don't even know if I blurred the right one for this joke.
Now, as I mentioned, drama videos tend to focus on a specific person and the bad things that they did, said, or believe. And that is the overall point of the video, to do that. But you can get stuff like, most video essays I watch are some form of media analysis, because that's what I enjoy, whether it's about video games, novels, movies, TV shows, etc. But there are still times, even when analyzing a piece of work, that the specifics about the background of some of the people involved, like a writer, a director, etc., those are going to come up. Like, you can't really discuss something like the end of Evangelion without also dealing with its primary creator, Hideaki Anno, because that work is very explicitly a result of the things he was feeling about his own output at the time that it was made. Hi, it's Vera from The Edit. Just a really quick note. I realized during the edit that it looks like I might be implying that the creator of Evangelion had similar problems to the people who I showed previously. That is not the case. Those guys were absolute scumbags. This guy is a case of if you don't understand what was going on with the artist, you're going to have a very hard time parsing the art. So he's just being cited as an example of an instance where it's almost impossible to separate the artist from the art, even in an analytical conversation. But that is a very separate issue from people who work on things who are just scum. I didn't want the fact that their images appeared relatively close to each other to make people think I was conflating the two. So things about specific individuals can still find their way into video essays that are not strictly meant to be about specific individuals only. So that's a way that things can get blurred even when a video essay isn't intended to be strictly about a person. And then of course there are entire massive video essays that are primarily about a single individual person, be it something about their life, something that they did, or a belief that they have expressed. And when a video essayist talks about a person, it is almost never flattering. There is actually kind of a little bit of a cliche that video essayists tend to be very negative people. I've gotten that accusation myself. That is partially the fault of the algorithm because positive stuff often does not get the traction that negative stuff does, but we'll kind of talk about that end of things a little bit later. So if we accept the premise that video essays about individual people are valid, the question becomes, who is it fair to make a video essay about where it won't be just drama? Because in my mind, if you are going after somebody who has no public footprint other than like this one thing that, I don't know, went viral for some reason, you're just making drama. But if you're talking about a major public figure, like such as a celebrity or a politician or something like that, I would say that is mostly, at least as a starting premise, fair game, though public figure can be subjective. Are YouTubers public figures? Some of them, certainly. Jake Paul's a public figure. PewDiePie's a public figure. They're huge, they're massive. But at what point do you count as a public figure? Do I count? Like, I'm asking sincerely, I don't know. There's a kind of subsection and group of people who are aware of me. I do get recognized at cons, a heck of a lot more when it's a Doctor Who specific con, granted. But like, does that make me a public figure in the broad sense? I don't know. Lines get muddy. But there are other things that I think make a individual a valid topic for a video essay that isn't just drama. And I would say kind of the big one is if that person is causing direct harm in some way to the public in general, or maybe this one's a little iffier, if they have caused direct harm to the video essayist in question. Earlier in his career, Hbomberguy did a video talking about plagiarism before the big video he did talking about plagiarism. But some years before, he'd already done that, and he singled out a channel that had plagiarized his work. And I don't think that counts as drama because he was pointing out something that was done directly to him. Another thing that I think is worth taking into account as a factor, if we are talking about YouTubers talking about other YouTubers, because yeah, there's a certain cyclical nature to drama videos here on YouTube. If you are going to do that, one of the things that will help avoid the charge of being just a drama video is if the channel you are talking about is a larger platform than yours. Because then theoretically you're punching up. When somebody with a large channel, hundreds of thousands of subscribers decides to target and single out a channel with only tens of thousands, that is hard to paint as too much other than drama, especially if you're just gonna pick on, belittle, and make fun of them. I might have personal experience in this area a couple of times, but sometimes if there is that active harm element, you need to disregard whether or not you're the bigger platform. I think a good one worth interrogating on all this is Hbomberguy's video on plagiarism, which ultimately turned out to be a video mostly about James Somerton. I'm not going to reiterate everything that went on with James Somerton. It is way too much, but short version, man was a massive plagiarist. This was kind of known already, but nobody had really been able to present a strong enough case to get the guy deplatformed for all intents and purposes. There was a 1-2 punch of Hbomberguy's video talking about plagiarism, and then Todd in the Shadows put out a video shortly after talking about actual flat-out lies that Somerton would either initiate or perpetuate. And both of those were targeting a specific guy, and in both cases, he had fewer subscribers than either of them. However, despite Hbomberguy's own protestations and concern that he had made a drama video, I don't think he did.
I have functionally made a drama video about some guy.
Now, obviously, the video fits within the video essay format, building a case, not initially revealing that it's going to be about Somerton, but building a case giving specific examples about plagiarism, starting with a case of Philip Mewson, which was clear-cut, and this was a guy who's basically famous for no reason other than being a plagiarist, and then going into issues with Cinemassacre, which had a massive scandal that was well-known within its own fan base, Illuminati, whose platform was already imploding because of a whole bunch of other reasons. Internet Historian, who, if you checked around, you could find out very easily had done some pretty severe plagiarism, but that creator's own audience did not seem particularly aware of what had happened, before getting to James Somerton and using all the examples built before with those other cases to then build out a case against Somerton. And I would also argue that Somerton was causing active harm with his theft from other creators and his frequent erasure of queer creators that he would steal from, as he would steal their ideas, and as a result, he would be the one credited with those notions, those thoughts, those takes that weren't his, and would help ensure that the people who actually had those would not be heard from ever. And the sheer size and scale and volume of that video did matter, because Somerton had been accused of plagiarism more than a few times up to that point, but his standard MO was to either cover his tracks and pull the video, or just go really hard in his pushback against whoever was doing it. And he had a habit of doing that often enough that multiple people who had brought up notions of plagiarisms had then vanished, because he basically bullied them out of the space. But Hbomberguy not only had a bigger platform, but came with every example that was known and a whole bunch of new ones that he found. Basically, too much evidence to be brushed off. And while, yes, it was ultimately about some guy, he was some guy who did a lot of harm. And it was harm that wasn't being addressed. If the notion that you can't single out and point to the ills of some guy is the criteria for a drama video, then I hate to tell you, H-Bomb, but a whole bunch of your best work then qualifies as drama videos. And while I actually do think that you could look back at Hbomberguy's earliest work, particularly when a lot of what he was doing was taking on the, well, it would be called anti-woke now, but the anti-SJW types, yeah, one could argue that those were, in some cases, not all, in some cases were drama videos. Where would I draw the line on some of them? Well, some of them were very much cases of, okay, we're going to talk about this person because they are an example of this bigger thing that is going on. There were other times where it really did seem like he was just cataloging some nonsense. And you're allowed to do that if you want to, but at that point, you have kind of made a drama video. Now, keep in mind the ones I'm saying could be argued as drama videos are from the very early days of his channel. So I'm contrasting that to what he's been doing more recently, which I don't feel are drama videos. That being said, what I absolutely do relate to is Hbomberguy's concern at the end of the video that he would be financially incentivized to do this again.
If this video goes up and is monetized and gets views, I have been paid, financially rewarded for making this. I don't find that acceptable.
He knew that the video was going to do well, and it did. It did extremely well. It deserved to be honest. But yeah, that does financially incentivize you to go back to the well and do more stuff like that. And that worried him. That I get, because while I am here having this discussion about the difference between drama videos and valid video essays, I am not an impartial person in that discussion. But if we look at something like the plagiarism video, and if you agree with me that it's not just a drama video, it's doing too much other stuff, it's doing too much of a grander point about the nature of plagiarism, it is addressing someone who is doing active harm and did need to be stopped, then what do we watch for to distinguish something? What are the signs that maybe this isn't really a meaningful essay and it's just drama? Well, as I kind of said before, a good video essay, in my mind at least, should never just amount to this person sucks and or is wrong. There should be context, greater context about where they fit into larger conversations, using what happened with them as a springboard into another topic if the things about them that suck are already well publicly known. Just in general, having an angle and a notion and an approach to the subject that isn't just pointing out the bad things they did and wagging the finger of shame at them. Because if a video reaches its ending and the conclusion doesn't appear to be any more than to hell with this person, that might be a cause for concern. Now, to be clear, that doesn't make you a bad person for taking in drama videos. This isn't like a purity checklist of, oh, you're watching a drama YouTuber, you're bad. No. No, if you enjoy that kind of content, that's fine. But I see the notion floated, like, are video essayists just drama YouTubers? And my gut instinct is no. And I'm interrogating that and figuring out where the difference is. Because I find drama YouTube exhausting in the worst way. It's why I generally don't engage with it. And I have found myself drifting away from some creators when I felt they've started going that way. But again, I'll cycle back to that. Now, it's worth noting that sometimes a video isn't a drama video, but might have the appearance of a drama video, usually for algorithmic purposes. This usually comes down to things like title and thumbnail, where there will be a big, bold, declarative, very black and white statement that is not necessarily reflective of the actual tone of the thing. The video that I kind of mentioned at the start, interviewing a number of video essayists, D'Angelo Wallace talked about this.
Either people are going to click into this video and they're not. And if I name the video, I have a neutral feeling about this topic, but I still think it's worth discussing. Or if I say this is literally trash and it's a 45-minute video, which one would I click? I'm just going to go with the maximum engagement. As long as it's an accurate representation of what people can expect to find in the video, I don't really care about like the title, the thumbnail.
Clickbait is a little bit of a different accusation from being a drama YouTuber. At least it should be, because let's be honest, I, for one, think that clickbait has a place. Because ultimately, if nobody's clicking on your video, it doesn't matter how well you did. It doesn't matter how much nuance you brought to it. None of it matters. Nobody watched it. So going in with the boldest possible wording for the title that maybe has stripped the nuance that the video itself has out for the sake of a bold headline, or a thumbnail with the face of somebody that is likely to drive people to go, ooh, let me see what's going on there. I don't think that is wholly invalid. There are still times that it can cross a line, depending on the specific wording, whether or not it devolves into a personal attack. I've definitely seen some instances where people have decided to criticize trans YouTubers, which, to be clear, you can absolutely do, but they then go out of their way to find the most unflattering image of that trans person as possible. I have seen thumbnails talking about trans women on this platform that are colored in a way to maximize 5 o'clock shadow and beard stubble. And you know what? At that point, I don't care what the content of your video is. F you for doing that. So while I'll grant some nuance to, there is some place for clickbait just because of the nature of doing this job, there are still some lines even within that. And also, it does still need to be accurate in some way to what it is you're saying. If you just have something in the title flat out that just isn't backed up by what's going on at all. There was somebody shared a video with me where like the title and the thumbnail was this huge inflammatory thing about like a major creator who I had a lot of respect for. And it's like, completely ruined their reputation in this. And then I tried to watch the video and nothing was cited. Like there wasn't even an accusation of something that would have warranted that, much less anything to back it up. And I got to the end of the video and went, what the hell was that title and that thumbnail? So again, while I will make some allowances for clickbait, you can overstep. Another thing that I think is a factor is frequency. How often is this creator revisiting the same the same topic, the same individual, or individuals in the same vein? Now, this can get a little dicey because depending on the nature of the channel, if it is built around talking about a certain kind of thing, then yeah, maybe the same kind of people tend to come up naturally in that discussion no matter what you do. If you're going to be Steph Sterling and talk about the abuses of corporations within the video game space, you know what? Bobby Kodak's name is going to come up a lot. I wouldn't call Steph a drama YouTuber for pointing him out. So there are times that a specific individual will come up, but if that person is being named and put in the thumbnail over and over and over again, even in videos that aren't strictly only about them, and it's always the same person, that is not a red flag, but that might be a cautionary sign. And this is kind of where I'm going to cycle around to a YouTuber I'm not going to name because I like their stuff. I do. But they have, over the past year or so, done multiple videos on the same other YouTuber over and over and over again to the point where I kind of want to shake them and go, let it go. Now, to a certain extent, this might actually have evolved from drama YouTube into a feud, but those things are kind of complementary. Drama YouTube feeds in on itself. A feud is more drama to talk about, but like, I strongly suspect, and again, I'm not naming names, so I know this means I'm talking in vague terms, but I strongly suspect that if I were to watch that first video that the creator I follow did on this other YouTuber, it probably has the nuance that I would ask for in these kinds of things. However, the frequency with which this stuff has been put out on the same topic, taking down the same person for different reasons, or even the same reasons sometimes, after a while, it doesn't even matter if each individual video essay is still well constructed. If you are picking the same target over and over and over again, you're building drama. You aren't making a greater point. You're just talking about this person all the time. And that's not great. And that's not an area where I want to see a creator who I otherwise like start to tip over into. Now, maybe they're done. It's been about a month since they've dealt with this, but I'm not necessarily going to hold my breath. And it's frustrating to see someone with broad interests just narrow down and keep hammering on the same thing, the same person, over and over. After a while, it stops feeling like you feel there are things that should be known about this person. It starts to feel like you are sitting down and going, ooh, what'd they do this week? And if that's what you're doing, that is the heart of making a drama video. Now, as I said before, generally it's a good sign if a video is putting it into a greater context or making a larger point. If a video is ultimately just a catalog of everything that a creator has done wrong, I'd call that an orange flag. There are times that it is warranted. I would say, again, usually with cases of active harm that need to be better understood and possibly discussed. I would say something like D'Angelo Wallace's video on Blair White and the history of her nonsense would kind of count for that. As would Hbomberguy's James Somerton's video, but I don't want that to be my only go-to example. But the thing is, if you're not kind of being the one to break this story, or if you're not the first one to like do a proper aggregation and like giving the full weight of the issues with this person, if you're not kind of being the first one to really heavily push that forward, or at least the first person with a platform of size, if it's somebody doing active harm, then you gotta have more than just a list of stuff that they've done. The world does not need you to just say the things that a person did that are bad and give your hot take on them. And now this is where I have to circle back onto my own bias and the fact that I am not immune from this conversation. There are videos that I've made, actually most of the most successful videos I've made in the last couple years have focused and centered around specific individuals and could be at least accused of being drama videos. The primary examples being the 2 videos I've made on James Somerton and the now 3 videos I've made on Neil Gaiman. Now, in the case of the first Somerton video, I actually didn't really go over the accusations at all. I just pointed people at Hbomberguy's and Todd in the Shadows video. But the reason I made that was to literally have the bigger conversation of, okay, we know what's happened. Now what? And not now what as in what do we do about this guy, but what do we do as a community? What lessons do we take from this? And that's kind of the approach that I try to take with something where I know I'm not the first one talking about it. And that was very much the approach that I took with Somerton. And I've taken it with other things as well. When I've talked about things like the firing of Gina Carano, I came at it from the angle of talking about the real reasons for the firing and the corporate mentality, because there was all the spin about, oh, she was fired for her opinion. No, not really. And I wanted to have a conversation about the ways in which those things get thought of at the corporate level. And this is kind of what I mean when I talk about having an angle that isn't just repeating the thing and going, that's bad. When I talked about Illuminati, I came at it with an angle that I wasn't seeing discussed. A reason that I thought this was really going to stick with her, even before she showed up in the plagiarism video, that was an angle I just wasn't seeing brought up. And I had thought about it and wanted to bring it into the conversation. And then with something like Neil Gaiman, I literally got roped into that because I made the video that I wish somebody else would have already made. I wanted a better sense of what it was that was going on, what was actually in the content of those podcasts that had broken the story, and nobody was making it. All I could find was other people's hot takes or just vaguely referencing the podcasts. And I saw almost no actual dissection of what it was, no analysis. And I wanted to know. And nobody else did it, so I did. The thing I said before about the temptation to do more, I get that because those videos did really well. I know that it's hard to resist the temptation to go back to that well. Now, one could argue I kind of did when I did the third video, which was not strictly about Gaiman. It was about the Fallout 2 creative works he was attached to. You could call it related. That does kind of bring in the clickbait stuff because Gaiman has done well for me, but I kind of address that to a certain degree, and I'll talk about it a little bit more in a specific instance in a minute. But the thing that I feel like is worth pointing out is there was another podcast episode released since the second video I did. The reason I did a second video was partially because the first one, I didn't have a strong final conclusion. I had a final analytical conclusion, but I did ultimately say, I don't know personally where I land on this yet. I had like a spectrum where I was going to land, but I hadn't really landed. By the time I did the second video, I knew where I stood. And I wanted to say that, and that's also why I said in that video, I don't want to talk about this guy's scandals again, which is why the third video that I did tied to him isn't actually about the scandals. But the reason I bring all that up is because there was another episode of that podcast that came out after my second video. And if all I cared about was clicks, if all I cared about was maximizing the algorithm, that would have been instant content fodder. Fire it up, listen to it, and go through the same motions I did with the other ones. Do the same analysis, all the usual stuff. I didn't because I don't want to. And I'd said my conclusion already. I would have nothing to add. I haven't even listened to that podcast, and I don't intend to. I cannot imagine that it gives me any reason to have a different conclusion than the one I had before, and I already gave my conclusion. But if I only cared about the clicks, if I wanted to just dive into drama, because I know that when I do talk about this stuff, it usually does well, that was a gimme. I didn't do it, and I won't. Because speaking personally, and again, you can enjoy watching this stuff, but for me as a creator, falling too far down these rabbit holes feels gross. And I'm not saying this from a high and mighty place of being above anything I've done being called drama. I mean, some of it has been. I'd say looking back at, for instance, the videos I did on Ezra Miller, the first one I did on them, I think I am pretty comfortable with. It was an analysis and a breakdown of stuff that was sort of pulling everything together in one place so people could get a better understanding, and also just have a discussion on how it was impacting movie projects that I, at least ostensibly, potentially had some interest in. By the time I did the second one, I'm not sure I can justify that as well. That was more just an update of the latest nonsense going on with them. As for other stuff I've done that could conceivably be called drama stuff, there's numerous videos I've done on J.K. Rowling, which you may notice I don't do nearly as often. If I wanted to just do a new video every time she said something horrible, boy, that well never runs dry. I would be set for life, but I don't want to because it's draining. And I generally haven't unless it has represented a specific escalation of what she has been doing, because I would consider J.K. Rowling to fall under the category of causing active harm. And I think reminding people that she causes active harm is something worth doing. But the other example that I want to pull up, and we'll circle back onto the clickbait thing, is the video I did on one topic, except not really. If you actually watched that video, what it was actually about was ads from the far right and hateful organizations being placed on queer and queer-friendly video creators' channels. The fact that it was A, happening, B, that most creators think there's nothing you can do about it, and C, there actually is, and you should. Now, the thing is, I had talked about this topic already by that point with a very basic, bare bones, basically instructional video for other creators, telling them the steps of what you do in order to block specific outlets, people, etc., from being able to advertise on your channel. And that video got 11,000 views. When I took the opportunity to address it specifically to one topic, who is a creator I like, and I even said that in the video, but who has acknowledged, oh yeah, those videos show up, there's nothing I can do about it, and using his incorrect belief that there was nothing he could do to springboard into the discussion, that was clickbaity, and that was deliberate. And as a result, that video had 81,000 views. Over 7 times as many people saw something that I thought was important. And I won't apologize for that. And most of the people who saw that video understood what I was doing. There were a handful of people who decided that I was somehow slamming or trashing or trying to take down one topic, which I don't know how you could watch the substance of that video and come to that conclusion, but whatever. I will absolutely cop to a certain amount of clickbaitiness with that, to get eyes on what I was trying to say, because I'd said it before and nobody listened. So again, circling around to, yeah, I'll make some allowances for clickbait within a certain margin. While I will admit that to a certain degree, I'm kind of drawing the borders for the difference between a video essay and a drama video in a way that most of my output does not land in drama, I'm not immune. I'm aware of that. Although also, to be clear, I don't consider most of what I put out to be video essays. There's some, for sure. The Shining video I did earlier this year, I would say definitely qualifies. Most of my more scripted stuff probably to some degree qualifies as a video essay. I'm not even sure if this counts as a video essay. I'm not sure I'd consider it. But I found the question of where the line is interesting to discuss, partially because that line ain't solid. It's blurry as hell, because a well-produced drama video certainly can look like a video essay, and a video essayist, even a really good one, isn't necessarily immune from or above making something that qualifies as a drama video. I think maybe part of the thing to consider is that blanket categorization of entire channels, especially ones that shift topic fairly regularly, maybe isn't helpful. Because like I said, some video essayists can end up dipping into drama. I've done it a little, and only so much of what I do I consider to be video essays. But we tend to think of channels in these rigid things like, this is a video essay channel, this is a drama channel, this is a Doctor Who channel. Well, yeah, I talk about Doctor Who a lot, certainly not exclusively. Never have, actually. Even when Doctor Who was reliably my most viewed content, I still didn't talk about Doctor Who exclusively. Now, if a channel does basically exclusively or like 90% of the time only talk about one thing, yeah, sure, it's fair to call that channel a whatever that thing is channel. But you still have to accept that sometimes they may make something that is an exception to their normal output. Maybe a video essayist makes a drama video. That doesn't necessarily mean that they are a drama channel. If they start making drama videos on a semi-regular basis, okay, maybe think about that. But again, I don't want to yuck anyone's yum. If you like drama channels, if you enjoy the spicy hot takes and the people getting giddy over feuds or whatever, like that's fine. You're allowed to do that. But knowing that some people get dismissive about the video essay format, which again is something I do on occasion, but is something that I take a lot in, yeah, I feel like that's a belittling of video essayists, and there is a distinction. Not nearly as solid as I would like, not even close. But I do think it's there, and there's things to weigh and things to consider. And hey, if you are a video essay channel or trying to be, and you find yourself keep talking about the same single person or a couple of people over and over and over again, at least find some other topics, some other people to point to make your points. I, for one, would appreciate it. But am I going to get accused of just being passive-aggressive for that? I don't know. Like, I'm not naming channels, but I do, for some of the things I'm saying, I do have specific channels in mind, but I don't want to start drama. I've actually never wanted to start drama, even on the occasions when I've had to or have chosen to. I don't have to, but even the times where I've chosen to respond to it or observe it and give my thoughts on it in one way or another, I try real hard not to start it. But whatever your thoughts are on this, drop something down in the comments. Let's talk about it. Patreon pays the bills, enables me to do this as my living. Even if you can't help me out that way, like, share, subscribe. Links down in the description for other stuff I do, including where to get my novel, which now has its audio book version out. But don't worry too much about any of that. What I really want you to remember is that you are beautiful, you are valid, and you are loved. You are the council, and I'm just running the meetings. And until next time this council is adjourned. Why did I actually count them out that time? I never do that. I should do another take, but I'm not gonna. I'm tired. I got other stuff to do. Bye. And now it's time to thank my highest supporting patrons. Robin Moore, Goddess Elida, Zubin Lutfulla, Welsh Wrestling Geeks, Oliver B., Melissa Pedersen, Movie Turtle, Ulrich Bogdan, Loki Eris, Melinda Walters, Auntie Kate 808, Becky Sparks, Renabulax the Poodle, Tracy Scrabbit, Angry Casperl, Dave Hall, Quite Bearish, Rosalind Bennett, Adam RDL Taylor, Pal Barabajoggle, Mira G, and Sir Didymus is my favorite. You can hear me try and say your name while dealing with these guys crawling all over me by checking out the reward tiers on my Patreon. See you next time.